Welcome to the grand finals of Kydc of Elementary School Division. I'm Chujin Shin and I'll be chairing your grand finals. And also the panelists, could you please introduce yourself? First of all, I'd like to congratulate both teams for making it thus far. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome the Prime Minister up to the floor.
Minister. Mr. Madam Speaker, we think that from the point in which we actually use these sort of cash reward systems, especially in public school, we think that that's the point when we can actually maximize the potential and teach students that we need to push our own limits. Moreover, we think that that's the point when we can instill the moral value and also the value of meritocracy into these children as well. And at the end of the day, we think that that's the point when there's going to be increase of quality of education and moreover, there's going to be more productive members of our society. But before going on to our first two arguments about firstly why it's actually going to be principally justified and secondly about why it's going to be beneficial and at the end of the day why it's going to lead to increase of quality of education, we're going to provide you with what we necessarily want to contextualize in this debate. So what we're going to do is cash reward systems. We're not going to evaluate them based on the result, but rather we're going to evaluate them on the progression they have made compared to their past result in the first place. So that and the people and the individuals who have constantly maintained 100 or first place in their tests, they're also going to be provided these sort of cash reward systems. But we're also going to look at good behavior, and also we're going to evaluate creativity by providing them a certain problem and also looking at all of the solutions which they can actually provide in the first place. So you'd directly like to go on to our first argument about why it's actually principally justified. We're going to provide you with three main levels of analysis. Firstly, we're going to explain the maximization of the potential of the child. Secondly, we're going to talk about the instill of moral value. And lastly, we're going to talk about the meritocracy and why it's necessarily essential and significant for these children. So firstly, about the maximization of the potential to the child. Now, Mr. and Madam Speaker, we think that what's very important in this debate is teaching and instilling the value that you need to beat your own limits, and moreover, you need to beat your past self. We think that this can actually be motivated primarily because firstly you do provide money, but we think that what's also significantly important is that the value itself that you're going to get money, it means that the value that you're exceeding within your school, exceeding yourself, it means that you're going to have an increase of confidence. We think that this is going to apply to the same motivation even though you have money or not, and we think that it still instills the same value. Moreover, there's going to be more motivation to actually beat my past self, which is actually going to lead to the maximization of potential to the child. But moreover, secondly, we think that it actually instills a moral value. Mr. Madam Speaker, from the point in which you actually evaluate them also based on the good behavior, not only they're going to understand the value of getting good behavior, but secondly, they're going to constantly repeat it because of this reward. And at the end of the day, because they experience the consequence in the first place, that's the point when not only it's actually going to leave as a habit, but moreover, they're going to constantly try to do it again and again, primarily because they understand the consequences. We think that this is similar is what's happening in the status quo, because even right now, we train babies or we train animals in this sort of same way. We provide them with a certain reward if they do a certain action. We think that this is extremely effective in the first place, primarily because that is the point in which these stakeholders actually understand the problem in the first place and also understand how to solve it. But moreover, thirdly, we'd like to talk about the role of education and instilling the value of meritocracy. Mr. and Madam Speaker, we think that individuals, especially at a young age, you need to know the term of meritocracy, primarily because when you're young, you're capable and it's much easier to take in the information that you actually get in the first place. Because children are like sponges, it is much easier for them to take it. But moreover, secondly, it's going to be much easier to remember that certain knowledge. And moreover, we think that that's the point, and because of the motivation, and because of the certain consequences that get, and because of the competition and experience, that's also the point in which meritocracy is going to be fulfilled. We think that that is important, and that's actually going to lead to more benefits, as we're going to explain in our second argument. But so we're going to move on to our second argument about how it's actually going to be beneficial. Firstly, we're going to talk about the competition and at the end of the day about how it's actually going to increase the quality of education. Mr. and Madam Speaker, from the point in which we actually evaluate these individuals by their certain good behavior and also by the progression that they have made, that's the point when there's going to be more participation within the class, there's going to be more communication within the class, and at the end of the day, more people are going to actively participate. We think that not only it's going to be better for the students, primarily because they can also collaborate with each other making new ideas, but moreover, we think that the teachers are going to be much more motivated, primarily because there are more people who are trying to solve the problem that they have actually provided. There are more people who actually listen to the class very carefully. And at the end of the day, because of this competition that exists, not of beating myself and also exceeding my own limits. We think that that's the point, and there's going to be an increase of quality of education. And at the end of the day, that's going to make more productive members of the society, primarily because they understand the term of meritocracy. They understand that they need to have more motivation, and at the end of the day, they're going to have more motivation to succeed. And because we have proved here, firstly, why it's principally justified, and moreover, what's the role of school, and secondly, at the end of the day, why it's actually going to lead to a more productive member and increase of quality of education. We're very proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And now I'd like to invite the Leader of Opposition up to the podium.
May I start? So, Mr. Madam Speaker, in today's debate, we think that there's no actually justification of why it needs to be necessary in today's debate. We think that actually without these caste reward system, we think that we can achieve the value meritocracy and other value that the Prime Minister has honorably explained. So, directly moving on to the rebuttals that I made from the previous speaker. So, the Prime Minister firstly explained about the principle of justification, maximization, and secondly about the moral value, and lastly about the meritocracy, how it's important. So, I have several responses. Firstly, Madam Speaker, in public school, we think that it is include elementary school, middle school, and high school. We think that these age peoples are very young, and therefore we think that because they're young, the value as competition is not actually right for these young age peoples to learn, because we think the competition can still learn in an adult age. We think that these competition value can achieve, and then furthermore, in the future life, we think that there's not actually an exclusiveness that why we need to actually learn this value competition in these kind of age. We think that these competition can learn in other age, and we think that in these age people, they need to firstly learn about how the moral value is very important. We think that therefore their principal justification should not be sent. Secondly, about their second argument, how they will participate more and solve the problem. We think that, Madam Speaker, this value should not be achieved by the money, because we think that this money is valuing all other subjects as subjective, as not subjective but objective. So therefore, value like moral standard cannot be achieved in a standard that is very objective. So directly moving on to my first argument about why this motion creates artificial moral standards. I have three levels of analysis. Firstly, about the public schools characteristic. Secondly, about the caste reward system characteristic. And lastly, why moral value is important. So firstly, one by one. So we think that public school characteristic, they are official, and it's before a step when individuals are going to real society, right? We think that they need to make or practice students to be functional at the society when they go into the real society. So when the individual have a wrong behavior, we think that the school is the individual they need to make individual to regulate and help them to make a good behavior at the first place. So we think that because of these exclusive characteristics of public school, secondly, we think that these cash rewarding system characteristic is affecting very crucially, because the fact that they're basically funding them with the cash. We think that this cash is money that is easily made individual to have a right or wrong behavior by valuing them as objective. We think that these values cannot be achieved. And lastly, then why moral value is much more important compared to this cash value at the first place. So, Madam Speaker, we think that this moral value are value that cannot be compensated by other factors, objective or subjective. We think that these moral values teaches different communication skills, socialization, cooperation. We think that this is helping individuals to form their own identity at the young age. Because of these crucial reasons, lastly, the government's role is to make these functioning member of the society, and it's more for them to teach moral standard without the compensation, because we think that moral standards at the first, this should not be justified with the objective standards. So therefore, because we think that moral value is much more priority compared to the value that the government team has suggested, we think that there is no justification at the first place. So on to my second argument about the harms to the individual, I have two levels of analysis. Firstly, about the bad habits from these individuals. Secondly, about the harms to children. So one by one, we think that bad habits, now in current society, Madam Speaker, society, they usually do volunteer work and help poor people because they know what is moral, and because they know what is the moral standard, they learn at the young age. So we think that They show how the natural check and balance exists and how these natural check and balances existing as a correct way. We think that at this moment when the government are using the money, they will only think about the money. Why? Primarily because the society emphasizes how money is needed at the first place. But we think that there's no exclusivity as to why we need to teach them in a young age. We think that these children, they will naturally learn at the adult age when they grow up. So we think that this is bad when they are only prioritizing money over the moral standard that we are prioritizing. So therefore, we think that today's motion should not be passed. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Leader of Opposition. Now let's invite Deputy Prime Minister.
May I start? Mr. and Madam Speaker, today before I go on to our team's final argument about how this motion is actually this motion provides better things for these poor individuals, let me go on to my rebuttals towards the opposition team in today's debate. So the first argument was about how actually these children will be more functional and because these children will now be able to form their own identity. Well, Mr. and Madam Speaker, actually this value that these children learn when we enforce this motion, that you can actually be a better version of yourself, actually increases the confidence, and this is the more important thing, and we actually think that this is the thing that allows these students to further form their identity, unlike what they said. And second level is that in their side, in the status quo right now, these students have no motivation to try harder or to actually try to beat the people who are very good, or they have no intention to try hard because they know that those people will always be better than me, and I have no way of receiving a reward because those people will always be superior. But when we actually enforce this motion, then these students actually have a motivation, and they feel that, even if I don't always excel over that person, I can still get benefits when I actually try hard as an individual to be myself and to be a better version of myself. And their second argument was about how this will actually create bad habits, and these children will only think about money, and they will only know the value of money. Well, Mr. and Madam Speaker, this is actually not true, because now these students understand the value of the good efforts that they do. Now they understand that about how good and how beneficial it is when they do these positive actions, and this is a very, very good lesson we are putting into these students' minds. And they talked about how actually social work, like when you actually volunteer and do volunteer work, this is like the stuff that is important. Well, Mr. and Madam Speaker, we actually enforce many values into these children by enforcing this motion, because it's not only about your academic score, but it's also about how much you try and how much you put in effort. And that's why it actually makes a good habit for these individuals to learn about how doing these good things is good. No, thank you. And when they actually get into the practice of doing these things as a young individual, this habit will stay until they get older, and that's why this is beneficial. And they also talked about how they can achieve this even without, they can achieve the sense that they could about this morality even without this motion. But this actually, our motion achieves this better because these individuals are not able to individually feel this. They are able to experience this, and this is the best type of education, and that's why this is the way that they will stay in their heads. No, thank you. And nextly, they talked about how it's very, very immoral to emphasize competition into these young individuals. Well, actually, it's not, because it's not competition against other people. It's not I have to be better than other individuals. It's that I have to be better than the person I am now, and that's why it's more effective when these students are very young, because it's enforcing the idea from a young early age when they're like a sponge, so they can intercept a lot of information. And that's why it's important when we do it in these young ages. They also talked about how this will actually not achieve the goals that we are talking about, but actually these teachers can see the good behavior themselves, and they can feel this good participation and active participation, and that's why this actually will be effective. Now moving on to our team's final argument about how this is actually good for these poor people, because now these poor parents have an incentive to send their children to school, because they know that there is a possibility of these children earning money. Now they will not send their children to like labor force where they have to work for like 15 hours to earn $5 a day. And because we are able to actually avoid this exploitation of these children, that's very, very dangerous for these weak citizen members in society. And that's why in this sad reality, when we actually enforce this motion, because parents are also motivated to send their children to school, and they're much more motivated to enforce their children to study harder or to be a better person in the school environment. Now they actually care more about their child's education, and this is very, very effective because now parents are more interested in helping their child, and this is also very, very beneficial for these poor students because now they're actually able to get the education that they wouldn't have gotten in opposition team's case. And that's why today I'm very, very hot to propose on this motion. Thank you for listening.
May I begin? Judge, I want you to know, we don't care if the money gives a little more incentive. What we care is the bright future of these children for society and proper learning. So, going on to my rebuttals to the Prime Minister, they said that this will install moral values. But we believe that this will only install moral values in a short term. Why? Because on a long term, they will only get to think about the money. Why? Because money is the thing that causes the most incentive, and that is why they're doing this in first place. That is why they're doing these moral things in first place. So we believe that after a short while, like after they're taught that moral incentive is important, like they'll only think about the money. So their first point is flawed. Second of all, they said like this will maximize achievement and boost confidence. But it's basically saying that money is the only way to maximize achievement, which can be, of course, achieved without forcefully giving this money. So I want to ask you, can people only achieve if they get money? No, we believe that especially from a young age and especially in schools, they should learn that without money, with the incentive that you should proceed in your future, we believe that like these children can be capable to solve and achieve without money. And second, and one of their biggest point was that this becomes a habit, but that's exactly what we're trying to say. It becomes a habit that we should get money to do anything in society, and this becomes also a vicious cycle because it's basically saying to society that money powers everything, which is something that we don't want in society. Also, they talked about meritocracy, but we say that even like if we actually follow their case, where only the good people and the most capable people actually get the money, then no thank you. Then we're not teaching properly because achievement isn't isn't everything. Like this cancels out the efforts and the people who are not like the top of the top, and we believe that like they're saying that only the people who are the most capable should get the money, but we believe that other people too who are trying hard should get the money. And also they did not fully rebut to our artificial moral standards, which is why moral values are important, and second of all the government's role, which is very important in society. And going on to my rebuttals to the Deputy Prime Minister, they said that like in status quo there aren't people who are willing to try their best, so that is why we have to give an incentive. But we believe that like if there's more people who aren't willing to work hard in society, isn't it the school's responsibility to actually go out and teach these children why we have to like try hard in society so that we can succeed in the end? I want to ask the government, like, isn't it the school's responsibility to teach fully why it is important to try hard? We believe that money isn't the only way. Also, you are saying that like basically like the human values like is basically equal to money, but values cannot be priced because values are things that'll get you through life. These things cannot be priced every time you do something good. Like every time you do something good, we can't just pay you because you did something good. It's for your own well. No, thank you. Also, you said that this is good for poor people because the parents will have incentive to send their children to school if they're going to get money. But we believe that we don't go to school for money. We go to school for education. Children are not robots to help families financially. And we believe that schools, the reason why we go to schools in first place is to learn. And going into my argument, I'll argue that this gives like long-term harms. Children who will in a long term become adults will not learn about social skills and cooperation properly because they'll think that money is the only reason behind it. Especially because this is from the own mouths of these schools. Judges, like children think of schools as something that's official, right? That means that if the school teaches children that money is basically the things that power them, that'll mean that they won't learn all these skills properly. Also, like on a long term, how will these adults lead society when they never learn these values? Can you imagine a world without empathy, understanding, and cooperation? These values are made to create functioning members of society. I want to give 3 examples. Cooperation, so that people can actually work hard together. Empathy, so that people can understand each other. And responsibility, so that they take into consideration how they look after society, which cannot be counted under the assumption that we're just going to give cash for all of these moral values. So these all interrelate with each other to make a caring and protective society, which under the government's case cannot be achieved. So we believe that we take all the points today and we take today's debate home. Thank you.
Now I'd like to invite the governor with go to the podium.
Mr. Speaker, we believe that team opposition is being very irresponsible in today's debate because the opposition side is simply stating the harms that will happen in our society, but that they're not doing anything. They're not actually giving any alternative and actually trying to incentivize the children to actually have a good moral behavior or actually have good grades. So we believe that this was a very irresponsible opposition side in today's debate. And as we frame the debate, so we believe that this debate is about whether which team can actually effectively teach these children and implement the moral values about these children. And as our 2 previous speakers has already clearly proved to, we believe that children will not only be incentivized to actually have a good behavior or to actually get good grades because of money. But however, we believe that these children will actually be incentivized also because of the confidence. We believe that if you actually get the money from your teacher because you got a good grade or because you actually had a good behavior, we believe that if you walk down the hallway of the school, then other children will actually be like, oh, she's the student that actually got the reward. And we believe that because of this kind of increased confidence, children will actually have the full incentive to actually have a good behavior or increase their scores or like have a good progress. So we believe that this is a very beneficial point and only an exclusive benefit that can come from our side. No, thank you. So now let's move on to my first class, which is about the justification. So team opposition has been talking about how we have to make functioning members in the society. But exactly, we believe that we also think that we actually have to make functioning members in the society in the school. However, we believe that our team in society can actually fulfill this role more better because we believe that in our society, children will at least get motivated because A, they want to get money, and B, because they will have increased confidence if they actually get reward from their teachers. But no, thank you. But however, in their society, we believe that children will always think that there is always another superior individual than you. They will always think that some individual is actually going to be more superior level than you. But however, even in our society, because if you get the reward by the teacher, you're the one who's superior. So we believe that our team in society can actually implement a moral value that hard work can win you a good reward. And so we believe that our team in society can actually fulfill the role of school much more effectively in today's debate. And team opposition also talked about how students will only prioritize money than doing like voluntary work. But however, we have 2 levels of response that we'd like to give to team opposition on this point. First of all, we believe that even in their society, children will not do voluntary work because they want to. For example, even in schools, they actually have mandatory volunteer hours. And you know why the children actually do voluntary work is because the school is actually making it mandatory. So we believe that this point was not mutually exclusive. And also, second of all, even though you assume that these students might only prioritize money, we believe that this is actually going to be effective enough in actually implementing moral values into these children. For example, in the status quo, we give chocolates to babies if they do something good. And we believe that this is working very effective in the status quo because these babies want the instant happiness moment where they get the chocolate and where they eat the chocolate. So we believe that even when we just change the chocolate into money, we believe that this is actually going to be a very effective standard in actually changing these kind of students morally. So we believe that our team is this team that can actually fulfill more better justification in today's debate. So no, thank you. So we take this first class. Now moving on to my second class, which is about the harms and benefits. So team opposition has been talking about how competition can be also achieved in the future, and they talked about why do we have to do this in a very young age. However, Mr. Madam Speaker, we believe that you have to do this in a very young age because at a young age, your mind's like a sponge. You're easily influenced by diverse values. So we believe that at a young age, they should be able to learn the concept of beating your own limits. They should be able to learn the concept of meritocracy or these kind of concepts when they're young. So we believe that being young is also exclusive in today's debate. And team opposition also talked about how it will make a bad habit of children only prioritizing money. However, Mr. Madam Speaker, we think that this point is not true. We believe that this will actually make a good habit because we believe that because since these children are going to be incentivized to have good behavior or study or hard or etc., we believe that they're going to constantly do these kind of actions, and when they constantly do these kind of actions, this eventually becomes a habit, Mr. Madam Speaker, in the future. But then because in their society they're not doing anything, we believe that our team is a society where we can actually make a better habit of these kind of children. And before I end my class, I'd like to wrap up our team's case. So our team has talked about how the poor were only focused on labor force in the status quo, but however now they will also focus on education too, which is very beneficial in the perspective of the poor in the society. And we believe that even in our worst case scenario, these students will have a bad habit. However, we believe that our team's case scenario is much better because opposition side is not doing anything, but at least our team is ensuring the children are going to have a good behavior at the instant time where they get the money, at the instant time where they're happy. So we believe that our team's scenario is a much better scenario than the opposition side. Therefore, we take the second class, and we believe that our team has career won today's debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Wood. Opposition leader.
May I start? So, Mr. and Madam Speaker, our team believes that passing this motion has lack of benefit toward major stakeholders in this debate. Children, so there is actual lack of passing this motion in this debate, so we strongly disagree to this motion and thinks that this motion should not be passed. So I'll be presenting two clashes which I found in this debate. Firstly, is this motion helpful to create moral values of students? And secondly, practical benefits and harms. So I'll directly move on to my first class. First clash, is this motion helpful for creating moral values of students? Number one, we believe that public school is a place to prepare real society and an official place to give impactful education during students' age, and to build identity and ability, cooperate, and being functional member of society. And this is a very important role of schools have to be fulfilled. But we believe that money can be values exclusivity, and they can't fulfill this role because they will be short-term and think that money is the only motivation for doing a good moral values. So we believe that they are not fulfilling a public school's role. And also, we believe that even if in status quo a high motivation is needed, we believe that money-based value is not a thing that we should prioritize, and because children will easily understand that values without money is not important, and they will think that money is the only motivation for them to do good things and have the moral values toward them. So we believe that we should prioritize our value more than their team's value, because firstly, we believe that our value can only exclusively achieved during young age. So we believe that in this debate, we believe that our exclusive value is more important. And secondly, we believe that it's important to form identity during this age. So we believe that our value should be more prioritized than their team's value. And also, we believe that meritocracy is not achieved when individuals are getting motivation from money, not to simply help others, for example, helping poor, and because their policy is about children that improve their skill compared to the past. So for number one, children cannot improve their skill when they have low motivation, and secondly, they will have pressure to get a high score. So we believe that their team's case does not stand in today's debate. So I'll move on to my second class, which is about practical benefits and harms. So firstly, about individuals, we believe that they are easily emphasized by money and think that money is an important value in today's society. So we believe that this will give a wrong habit and wrong influence them, because they will think that money is only exclusive motivation for them. And we believe that there are natural check and balances to make them learn about those values, not only money, that why money is exclusive enough. And also, we believe that motivation doesn't work in today's debate in their case, because they will
because actually their benefit will be very short term, and when they don't give money to them, they will be very biased and they will easily to get over their motivation. So this is not prioritized enough. And also they actually agree that children is like a sponge, so this is exclusively dangerous in their case and in our case, because they will easily think money is only motivation for the moral values. So the children will exclusively and more easily to think that money is the only motivation for moral value. So practical harm follows in today's case. And today's case as such, in having wrong habits and wrong moral values and wrong standards about values, so we believe that this is actually problematic. And also their benefit will be very short term because they will not learn about moral value fully, and they will not actually accurate those moral values, and they will not have those moral value when we doesn't give incentive and money to them. And also and by other, we believe that our team's value will be very long term because we will actually teach them moral values that are actually important without money, and moral values can be achieved without money that they are prioritizing about. And also poors, we believe that parents will want to get money, they will have faced the individual, so we believe that this rebuttal doesn't stand too. And they didn't explain any exclusive of money beyond our natural check and balances. Why is they more beneficial in long term, and why are they more beneficial for making them learning the moral standard in today's debate? So we believe that our team takes the second class home too. So because of our team takes this 2 classes home, I strongly believe that our team takes this debate home. Thank you for listening.
Opposition reply, I'd like to invite you to wrap up all questions.
May I start? So, Mr. and Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, the government side is trying to motivate everything by money. However, we think that this is the not right way to motivate these things. We should motivate by them naturally in the school. Their case will lead to a future will have like decreasing donation and any other help for poor, because like they will just think that everything needs money and everything gets motivated for money. So I think that their case will not have any donation or any other help for poor. I'll present 2 points and compare both teams' best case and worst case, which explains the team opposition to debate home. My first point is about meritocracy versus moral value. The government side said they have meritocracy because like if they give money, then it will be motivation, and also it will be important by teaching, because like actually if we give money, then they will actually motivate very strongly because they actually have money that can actually they can buy something that they want. However, the opposition says that they have moral value because like they in the future, in long term, they can volunteer and also help other people, which can develop the society more better. If I compare both team sides, I think that the hierarchy of value rights is actually not the meritocracy. I think it's moral value, because like actually our sides forms the identity when they're really young and when they're absorbing things that they already heard. So like I think that this can also be a point why opposition takes this point. And also like in the opposition side, we can also learn socializations, which cannot really form when they are really grown up. So I think that opposition side took this point. And my second point is about effects to children. The government side said it gets positive effect because like they will actually motivate them the best because it's money. However, the opposition side said the opposition also agrees that this is best motivating, the money is best motivating. However, in long term, if we think in long term, we said like we actually don't have any benefits and also harms, because people who heard it will like calculate everything with money and everything with money. So we said like we will actually don't have any donation for other people and helping for other people. If I compare both in society, I think the opposition side has more harms provided, because like they actually say that harms are long term and also harms for short term, which means that also they will have more development, and also they will have more motivation to do more motivation to do in like future acts. So like I think that this point, I think the opposition took this point. And lastly, I'll compare both things, best case and worst case. Even in their best case, the children might have like good score. However, they will actually don't have moral value, and also they will not actually help other sides. However, even in the worst side, a lot of children might not have good behavior and good scores. However, I think that we think that like actually we will success to increase the rate of volunteers to help others, and also the donations. So like this is the status quo, and also make the society more developed. I think a society which is more smart is no better to develop than the society with full of help, which is the opposition's principal arguments. Like, I think the government side will actually increase the rich and poor gap, which is like decreasing the donation of other people. I presented 2 points and compare both teams' best case and worst case, which explains the team opposition took debate home. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, opposition. Reply, government reply, commencement of the debate.
May I start? So, Mr. Speaker, they are constantly talking about our harm, but they are not actually giving a solution for it. Now, going on to my speech, our stance, both teams had the same stance in this debate, which was to implant more values to students for their future success. So the team who actually wins this debate achieves the goals the best. In my speech, I will explain to you why we, the proposition, won this debate. Now, going on to my speech will be split into 2 main points. Firstly, about the justification, and secondly about the harms and benefits. Now, going on to my first point, which is about the justification, they talked about how competition can be learned in future lives of students, so they don't necessarily have to learn when they are young. However, we believe that when children are young, they will be able to learn more, as their brains are actually like sponges. And since the real society is actually based on competition with themselves, basing on themselves, we believe that competition should be learned when they are young. Now, they also talked about how moral values are way more important than cash values. However, we believe that they're just maintaining the status quo, and they're not actually doing anything special about it. And lastly, they talked about how this whole thing creates a bad habit. However, we believe that it will actually create a good habit, because when you constantly do something, it will become a good habit that you can use usefully in the future. Now, at this point, we believe that we should maximize the potential of the child. We believe that motivation to beat my past scores, and this will be able to make good habits that will make the child successful in the future. And as children grow up, we believe that as children grow up, they will able to learn that that the value is not the prize. And for these reasons, we take this point. Now, going on to our last point, which is about the harms and benefits. Now, they talked about how their benefits was that they can make a society where students will be able to prioritize moral values instead of cash, and they could be making functional members in the society. However, we believe that firstly, this is not mutually exclusive on their side, because our side has the same benefits, and also we achieve these benefits more better because children will be able to become more confident, and children will be able to get motivated by this cash reward. Now, and we believe that in their society, because children believe that there is a superior individual, and because they believe that there was no way to exceed that individual, there is no sufficient motivation existing in their world. Now, because we have an exclusive benefit where there will be more participation in class, a productive society will be made, and poor parents will be able to support their child to get education. We stand on team proposition. Thank you.
Thank you, debaters. Please stand up, pause before shake hands, and see you guys in a minute.